It is 5:32, and I call this meeting to order. All right, and on to roll call. Excuse me. I see Aubrey, Bjorn, me, Brandon, Deanna, Greg, Joey, Jess, Josh, Lacey, Messina, Sean, and I think there's Terry, Eunice, and Zoe. There she is. All right. On to agenda approval. Can I entertain a motion? A motion by Jess. Do I see a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Eunice. All right, and we're about to vote. For those not in the committee, please do not vote on this pop-up voting ballot.
I think it's just Patrick tonight, so you can ignore Patrick.
It's just Patrick. All right, sounds good. And the motion passes. All right. Can I entertain a motion to approve last meeting's minutes? Jess, is that a motion from you? Yes, it was. All right. Do I see a second? Seconded by Deanna. I saw her thumb up first. My bad. And the motion passes. Okay, on to reports. I don't think I have anything to report for you guys this week, so I'll just hand my time over to Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, likewise, Christian, I don't have a whole lot to report for today. Luckily, the agenda isn't totally stacked, so that's good. I'll just yield my time over to Joey and Lacey.
Not a lot to report either. I mean, and you can see the agenda. We don't have any other communications and things coming up at this point. We do have a handful of meetings still throughout the quarter, and so I appreciate you all making the time to be here and everyone on time. And we have the full committee here, which is awesome. So thank you all. But otherwise, Lacey, I don't know if you have any other reports.
I do not have any reports this week.
All right. Thank you, guys. And I believe, Joe, you said we had no communications received?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So with that, let's move on to public comment. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
You know, I have a couple questions to Messina about Alaska, and no, sorry. Sorry, that was a joke.
All right. Okay, so seeing none, let's move on to old business, and that is with our voting items from last meeting. First up is intramural sports. Do we have any opening remarks for that? Bjorn, your hand's up.
Yeah, I mean, for this particular request, I don't see why not, because it's in line with what the previous S&A committee allocated it for. So as far as I know, that's our main point with these rollover requests. So.
And I think Eunice was about to say something, but then we'll go to Brandon.
I have a question about, like, if, for example, if you vote no to not roll over, where this money is gonna go?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So if you vote no, the money will roll back to the S&A committee or the supplemental budget that we kind of reference when we do like the one-time funding.
Thank you.
And Brandon, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, mine's also just kind of in support, kind of like what Bjorn said. You know, it's in line with the request as well. It's like they had intentions to spend it, but then COVID happened, and I think the students will benefit from having more, I guess, intramural opportunities as well as employment going into next year. So just voice my opinion that I'm in support with it, and yeah, it seems in line with what they'd spend with it. And then, yeah, I mean, just when we make a motion, we just have to make sure we have the timeline for one of them, but the other one is over 4 years. I don't know which one was over 4 years.
This one is, Brandon. This is the one they were planning to split. 25% each year over the next 4 years. So it'd be for the remainder of the upcoming quadrennium.
Okay. And while I have the floor, talking to you advisors, do we have to like do specific verbiage like that, saying like 25, 25, 25, or just give them the 4 years? Okay.
I would recommend not doing that because it makes it
Yeah.
really limited and hard for honestly to keep track of that
VC.
within it. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, Bjorn, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I still support it, but I had a quick question that I wanted to bring up to the committee. It was established at the end of this presentation that this money basically, it's added on to their budget, and that sets a precedent of like high quality rec programs or intramural programs. Matthew Boyer said that like after this rollover dries up, they may have to request more base funding to keep up the level of programs. I personally don't have a problem with that because it's for another S&A committee and requests are evaluated, fairly. But I was interested in if people had any issue with that.
Brandon, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked how Matt kind of described it. Honestly, it kind of makes it easier for the committee and also being a little bit more, I guess, like respectful of the supplemental budget as it is right now, because it's money that's already, I guess, earholed, and he's just planning on, breaking it out for the next 4 years. So when it does come the end of the next quadrennium, he may adjust his budget request, which I don't know. I feel like probably everyone who's base funded this, I guess, coming quadrennium will probably do the same for inflation and all that stuff. And but yeah, for me, I thought it was like honestly him being like a little bit more respectful of S&A when doing that, because it means like the next 4 years he won't be coming in for supplementals, which usually for the people that are like returners understand that is a huge, like, I don't know, it takes up a lot of time for pretty like small requests like that, because he'd be coming in every year for like 25K. And so yeah, I think for your money that's, I guess, already was meant to be spent, for him to just kind of like, instead of coming back each year for potentially more money, he's doing it this way.
Joey, I see your hand up.
I think the other part, Bjorn, to go to your part is on both ends is, one, we have no idea what the request will be in 4 years. The reality is it's still going to show the amount that you all put forward as the recommended allocation. And this is really a supplemental amount they're allowed to have. So any increase is going to show based on whatever that last year's is going to be. And it's possible that it could be a jump, that they're going to include this extra 25,000 a year in the request. I think the part of that is it's possible, and this could set the precedent for that, but I think it also shows if they're actually spending it. So you're going to see if they're using that full allocation, and so whether it justifies an increase for that committee in 4 years. So just things to consider.
Any more discussion points?
No, maybe someone can make a motion.
What, Eunice, was that a motion from you, or were you
No,
entertaining?
I don't want to do the, I don't want to make a motion because I'm not going to support it.
Okay. I see Brandon's hand up though.
Yeah, I make a motion to, I guess, approve this rollover for the next 4 years. I guess to be spent in the next 4 years.
Okay, do I see a second?
I will second that motion.
Seconded by Messina. All right. And then I forget, do we do discussion and then vote? No, we do just vote. Okay.
There should be discussion.
Yeah, Joey, you're still muted. You're trying, I see your mouth moving, but you're still muted.
I went to click the button, but the poll, I think, was there. No, we would do discussion first on that. And then we'll do the vote. So ignore that vote.
Okay, perfect. So any discussion? Eunice, I see your hand up.
I really want them to support the motion, but the thing is, how we gonna know that $25,000 for each year, they're gonna use it the right way to use it, It's not, we are not talking about $5,000. We are talking about 100K. I mean, are they gonna give the report to S&A for the every year or no?
I'll just jump in on that. I think, Eunice, I think that's a really interesting point for the committee to hear. As far as the reporting goes from that program, the way that I would understand it is that they do have a program review, and it will not be every single year of the 4-year funding cycle, but it would be once within that time period. And so it would be the same type, and that's the presentation, but financially and written, they would actually submit a report annually. So even though it's just for intramurals as a whole, outside of that additional 25K, I just wanted to make sure that there would be some sort of report back, but it wouldn't necessarily be specifically earmarking the $25,000 each year.
Can we just put, for example, I mean, I don't know if it's possible, like maybe we can give them the 50 and the other 50 to hold it for the 3rd year's committee to vote for that, something like that? Can we do that or not?
I'm going to answer Eunice's question. I don't have a comment, but sorry, Bjorn. To answer that, so then we can get to yours. You wouldn't really be able to do it that way, Eunice. Essentially, what you are saying is that the way you would do that is you would allot them the 50,000 now and encourage them to come forward in 2 years for supplemental for the other 50,000 if they showed a need for it at that point. But otherwise, it's really letting them keep the money because they have it right now. The way to do yours is we would take the 50,000 and we couldn't just give it back to them at that point. So not quite as clean and easy.
Let's go to Bjorn, and then I see Josh as well.
Yeah, I apologize for this scatterbrainness on my behalf. I'm looking through the teams. Can we find how much money we allocated to the intramural clubs annually in this deliberation? And secondly, for rollover funds, are we allowed to attach any earmarks or stipulate somehow how they can be spent? I mean, it would add a lot of stuff to the motion, but if it is necessary.
I guess I'll answer that, and then Lacey can correct me on what I would say on her piece. I mean, you all have some ability to earmark what is. I mean, really what it is right now is they put in the request and specified what they're wanting to use that funding for. And so it really should only be used for that. The hard part is going to be putting in it also because they already have the funds. So at this point, it's not like other supplemental where it's a reimbursement basis. So it is a little bit harder to track, but really when you're saying that we're allowing them to keep it for what's in the request, they really are supposed to be using it for what's on that side of it. And I don't recall what the first part of your question was, Bjorn, so I apologize.
I am recalling it right. It was about, can somebody pull up how much we allocated annually to IM Sports?
Yes, I can. So I'm gonna, oh, my screen just went. So it was about 105,000, just a little bit over, and I can go ahead and throw the exact number in the chat. So just for reference, he mentioned this in his presentation, but it is actually a flat number. So it's the exact same amount that we're allocating that area for fiscal 21.
Gotcha, thank you. And it looks like justification of spending, for clarity's sake, it's all student wages. So I guess you could tell later if they had spent this all on student wages by looking in the student wages expenditures yearly and seeing if there's an extra 25K in there, I suppose. I don't know if that checks out.
Lacey, were you about to talk to Bjorn's point or no? Okay, because I know Josh had his hand up beforehand, so
Well, I was just gonna say, what I have to say doesn't have anything to do with this, with the intramural request, but it's in general. These requests to use carry forward and spread it across the next quadrennial just feels to me like it's bypassing the allocation process that we went through when we reviewed everything. Because when we reviewed everything for the quadrennial budget, we spent a lot of time. There's a lot of intention, a lot of discussion across that, a lot of cost savings. Let's keep costs down. Let's make sure. And this to me just feels like it's bypassing that complete process, because essentially at the end of the day, we're allocating $25,000 a year or to any of these carry forward requests over that 4-year period. So I just want to bring that to this group to think about that. And maybe I'm wrong in how I'm thinking about that, but it feels like that. And it has nothing to do with if the funding is needed or not. It could be needed, could be very well needed and well spent. And so the decision is, you all want to spend your student dollars in that manner, and that's fine. But it just feels like it went outside of that process, which I just wanted to bring to the group for consideration.
all right, thank you, Josh. So let's go to Lacey and then Eunice.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to kind of bring up something that I do think is relevant to this request. So historically, what the S&A committee has done with minimum wage increases or cost of living adjustments that are mandated by the state, which is what we kind of reference minimum wages, is we've actually come as the entire base funding groups come in as a whole and request the total dollar figure from the S&A committee. And how that works is, let's just say the calculation, which is kind of handled by me and those individual directors or program owners. Let's just say the total dollar figure for the committee is $100,000 for that year. If that was presented to the committee and the committee voted yes to that, that actually goes all the way up through the President's Budget Allocation Committee and also Board of Trustees due to the dollar figure. And it's kind of tied into our budgeting pieces. So if this request does go through for this specific department, I would like it to be documented that they would not be included in the minimum wage or cost of living adjustment for that the rest of the areas would potentially go through. Does anybody have any questions about that process or any details about cost of living adjustments or minimum wage? I realize that I'm not sure if I can actually ask a question during discussion, but if anybody does, please let me know and I can always shine light on that later.
And Eunice, did you have your hand up as well?
I just want to say I am 100% totally agree with the Dr. Hubert. I agree with Josh 100%.
And there is a comment in the chat from Jess. I'll read it out for you guys right now. I agree with Josh that it could be problematic for that reason, but also if they have their current ask of $105,000, operate from the quadrennial at $130,000, I would not be surprised if the committee in 4 years is especially critical of that. Especially critical of that significant spike in ask, as we were of many groups this year. Then we end up in a situation in which they may vote to keep them as the previous ask, but then at a sustainability low or substantially low, amount for what they had been operating at. A bit of a long-term issue, but something to consider, I think. End quote. All right. Any other discussion? Let me double check the chat. Eunice, I see your hand up.
I mean, is it possible to make a motion to think about it and vote for next week?
Not right now, because there's already been a motion and a second that's taken place. So
Sorry.
once discussion is done, we need to vote on the motion that was put there. if that motion fails, then a new motion, yes, could be put on the board, Eunice.
Messina, I see your hand up.
Just for clarification, if the money was not to like roll over, it would just go back into S&A funds, but like into what part of S&A funds?
Absolutely, I'll go ahead and take that one. So this S&A committee oversees and manages this, what we deem as the supplemental budget. And that money would essentially roll back to the supplemental budget for this committee to manage. This year we didn't really set one, but in previous years, that is where some of the student clubs and departments would come and request supplemental funding for their programs or travel.
Any more discussion? Bjorn, go ahead.
One thing that's worth noting, correct me if I'm wrong, but 25,000 is the threshold over which a supplemental request, such as the one we might end up having intramural submit, would go up to forces that are much scarier than us. I view people bigger than me as scary, okay? And so for what that's worth, if we decided to put some of this into supplemental and have them ask for it later, that would, assuming it's over 25K, require a little more arbitration. Depends on how you feel about that.
Yes. So if it was over 25,000, it would go to the Board of Trustees. And essentially, if it was the $100,000 as a supplemental to spread across, it would also go all the way up through the BOT.
And Brandon, were you about to say something before Bjorn went?
Yeah, I mean, just according to the discussion, I was just going to call the vote so we can just see, because a lot of this discussion isn't about the motion at hand. Just call the vote.
And the motion passes to approve the carryover request for intramural sports. Okay, our next voting item will be for sports clubs. Are there any opening discussion points for that? Bjorn, I see your hand up.
Yeah. So I don't know about you all, but I've been making these decisions on the metric of, is it in the spirit of the original request? And while most of this is, I did ask Matt during the deliberation, the Q&A, that the original S&A funding was not for the tennis courts. And that to me says that the tennis courts is a new domain that this funding shouldn't cover. This rollover funding, at least, shouldn't cover. As mentioned before, it's kind of a little bit hard for us to stipulate exactly what the funding is used for. So if possible, I think it would be good to cut the tennis courts money out of the equation, but give them the rest of it. But I don't know if they could just use that for the tennis courts. It's a procedure that I don't know anything about.
Lacey, I see your hand up.
Joey might need to pop in on this too, but I would say if it was in the motion that it should not be allowed for the tennis courts, that would have to hold true through the whole budgeting and purchasing process, if that makes sense.
Go ahead, Joey.
Sorry, trying to unclick the mute while I have a husky on my hand with the mouse. Yeah, I mean, that would be true, as we would put it in there. It would be very specific that they cannot use it for that. And if they ended up using the money in there, because that's the other part, is this money is pretty limited and specific when we're looking at this account here, that if the money was being used towards that, it could have repercussions that the future committees could pull remaining funding from them if they're not following the guidelines of it. And then I did have one besides that, a comment to make in response to Bjorn's thing is I think not only the tennis courts, there was 3 parts to the request. One, and I'm trying to look them up on the minutes. One was tennis courts, one was for the club travel, and then the other one I believe was for a camera system that was out there. And both the tennis courts and camera system were not in the original funding allocation for what the funding was for.
Go ahead, Eunice.
So what I think about this is, I mean, what I believe that we already funding for them, and this is the money left over. I believe that this money can be used for the students different way, better way. For example, for tennis court, I don't think the S&A fee should be used. Also for club travel as well. As the MSA president, if I am going to the club council or S&A for the supplemental regress, if I give my own time, spend my time to come to ask money from you guys, then they should do also as well. Because 200K is, I don't know exact amount, but it's more than 200K, I think. It's a lot. And they didn't use it due to COVID-19, and we are not sure when it's gonna be still sports traveling or sports matches. Many of them canceled, so we don't know for sure that when it's gonna be happen again. So they might roll over again. I believe that we should funding for some way, but not the full amount at all. If the sport clubs wants the money, they can come to S&A or the other resources to ask money like as others to make sure they keep the fairness from the old other clubs as well. Plus sport clubs charging money for the students' fees, and they have other resources as well. I mean, this is my own opinion that I feel like it's too much, and I don't think we should fund it fully to keep the fairness, to make sure that all students' voices are heard. Because there's other places that we should use the money for. Like we didn't, for example, we didn't funding the music department for some reason, right? I feel like it's similar issues. If we don't find the music department, we should not funding this because we already funding them for the 4 years term money. And if this money, if we vote no, if this money is gonna go back to S&A supplemental, and if the students ask, we can use that money for them, I think it's gonna be beneficial. It's my own opinion.
Okay, so let's go Lacey, Brandon, and then Joey.
Brandon can go before me.
In that case, let's go to Brandon.
Okay. I should have just like took notes on what I was gonna say, but for Bjorn's thing, I just want to speak. I was in support of it too. You know, I think the only part of that request we should do is probably the travel, because that's initially what they were planning on spending in the previous quadrennium, and wasn't, was actually included in their, I guess, like the justification in the last previous quadrennium. And I think we really set that clear precedent with all the other ones as well. Likewise with the tennis courts, it seems like they're just coming to student fees because it seems like the easiest option, and I don't like that feeling, which is a personal thing. But I also think that they shouldn't be coming to S&A for that if it originally we weren't the ones to be responsible for that, and it was more like, I think, facilities or something else. I don't quote me on that part, but it didn't come from S&A, and so I don't understand why it should be coming from us now to maintain that. And then I see the cameras, the live streaming could be just a supplemental request in the future, because it's just not what they planned on having it spent for before COVID. And then I guess talking to like Eunice's point, we decided not to base fund an academic department for very specific reasons. If you don't know those specific reasons, definitely go back and watch your recordings, because I don't want to get it twisted and get any of us twisted too. But for this one, I think it's completely different with the rec department compared to an academic department or college whatsoever. And knowing that this is, pretty much purely funded by student fees. And then I also wanted to point out how back in fall, we kind of readjusted. So, only base fund areas could come up and request supplementals. So it would definitely alleviate all those stresses that Eunice was talking about, how students had to go request funds for multiple areas. And if they wanted to request more money, they had to go to S&A and go through multiple processes for requesting money, which just made it hard for the students, more red tape, more loops that they had to jump through, versus this is kind of what I was talking about, where I guess Boyer here in this case, or any director in the future would come up to us and ask for basically kind of like one request, and then from there, he could just allocate it out to the students directly, and it's a lot more accessible and equitable to the students in that sense, versus all those loops that they have to jump through. And I just wanted to point out that that's, you know, what we talked about in fall, and we voted in support of that. So that's kind of like everything I wanted to kind of address with everyone, but at the same time say like, I'm in support with what Bjorn was saying, where we don't fund the tennis courts or the live streaming. Live streaming caveat is like, could be a supplemental request this year or next year, but we should only probably fund like the travel or that third part, basically. And with that, I yield my time.
All right, let's go with Bjorn and then Joey.
Nah, Joey was first.
Oh, he was. All right.
You,
let's
you
go
can
to
still
Joey.
go first, Bjorn, unless you're about to just make a motion, because I just have a quick thing.
Oh no, I wasn't about to. I wanted to point out that it's possible that the tennis court money could eventually become a supplemental request, given the fact that way back, probably before I was born, the S&A Council provided some of the money for the tennis courts to be built in the first place. So like, it's within our domain, but it is old, and it definitely shouldn't be part of this rollover specifically. I swear I had a more articulate thought just a moment ago. Let me think on that while Joey talks.
Well, first, it was not back before you were born, Bjorn. It was not that long ago. The other part, and I do want to share, Messina put a comment in there just for those to see that she agrees with Brandon and Bjorn to fund for travel, but not tennis court or cameras. The part I was just going to remind you all on, and Brandon was kind of touching on this already, but that you all, when you're voting on the carry forward, aren't necessarily saying you're not in favor of whatever the funding piece may be. It could be exactly as Brandon was saying, you all can fund parts of those, but also recommend that they go through the regular supplemental request to ask for funding. So it goes through those other pieces as well. And so that's always a caveat that you all can put on there. They don't have to, but to encourage, if you say, no, we're not going to allow you to keep this, but we'd like you to come and request supplemental, simply because that with some of these would be a little bit cleaner if it's not in alignment with what the money was originally allocated for.
All right. I saw Bjorn's hand up first, and then let's go to Eunice.
Nah, Eunice was before me.
I want to
All
make a motion. You can go first.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Worthwhile noting that there's also Sport Club Council if they need funding from there. So there's other options. But I was going to ask what opinions were on the time for this, because if we end up funding just travel, I feel like it's worthwhile funding for maybe 2 years, given that we're still in the pandemic and things are still complicated vis-a-vis travel, so that they'll have a year to use, well, a year or more to use the travel funding. Alternatively, we could space it all out across the 4 years so they have an extra $20K for travel each year. But I don't have any strong opinions on that one. I just wanted to bring it up before we make a motion.
Lacey, did you have your hand up?
Yes, as a suggestion, I think that's a great thing to bring up, Bjorn. With travel costs, since they go up and down each year, I think if the committee is in favor of making a motion like that they should consider spreading it across the 4-year period to allow that some years might actually have a low in travel, while others might actually kind of go over, as opposed to spreading it out evenly each year. It would just be my advice if that was the committee's opinion.
It's a good point, especially because I think they're forecasting like a travel boom once everybody is able to travel. So.
Eunice, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I want to make a motion that not funding the tennis courts reserved first wing screen, install 2 gates, 4 cameras, camera system to live stream competitions, but funding $80,000 to travel safety and sport fund until the next quantum year.
All right. Any second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Bjorn. All right, and any discussion? Eunice, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks to Brandon for reminding me that what we talked on the fall. I totally agree with him. I didn't think that way. Yes, it's helped me to funding to students clubs that easy way, and the students use that money. I totally agree what Brandon say. That's why I changed my idea to funding them to traveling safety sport fund. I mean, in 4 years, if they don't use it, the money is still gonna come back to future CWU communities. So thank you, Brandon, again. Like, you are the best, bro.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, I call a vote. And Eunice's motion passes. All right. Up next, onto new business, we have a carry forward request from the International Student Activities and Outreach. And if I'm not mistaken, is that with Peggy Eaton?
I think it's Patrick.
Patrick Smith.
Patrick Smith, my mistake. Go ahead, Patrick.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Patrick Smith. I'm the fiscal specialist for, hi Eunice, for OISP and for Extended and Global Education. I do have a PowerPoint here. Am I able to share my screen to show that by chance?
You should be able to.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Can everybody see that okay? Gotcha, okay. So, there we go. So just a brief summary of our program. Again, not gonna go into a lot of detail because we just, of course, had the allocation request. So for our programming, we, of course, provide on and off campus activities for international and domestic central students, which helps, of course, connect our international students and domestic students, helping them integrate and communicate and provide that kind of cross-cultural interactions. And of course, we also provide programs and activities to help international students help feel welcome here at Central. That is one of the major points of feedback that we've gotten over the years, is that having these programs and offering these types of programs really helps students feel part of the campus community. So our current forecasted carry forward amount is $5,485 as of today. Our total carry forward might be just slightly higher or lower at the end of the fiscal year, just due to the uncertainty with some planned programs because of COVID restrictions. So for instance, our graduation celebration that we like to do at the end of each school year, we don't have much in terms of expenses planned for it right now, but we are trying to still put that together, and so may have more expenses than what we would currently have forecasted for our S&A funds. So of course, the reason for our carry forward balance, we had difficulty in providing programs and programming at the later half of the last fiscal year, and then of course throughout this entire fiscal year, of course due to COVID. So we of course did plan to spend the money down to zero, but of course again plans were changed because of COVID restrictions. We of course have now a dedicated program coordinator in our department for a few years now, and so we do have a pretty comprehensive and detailed plan on student programming. But of course, with COVID kind of shutting everything down last year, and of course all throughout this year, we weren't able to do really much of any of that, and of course had to switch to primarily digital programs, which of course don't require as much funding to put on. So the justification for our spending. So of course, with with the carry forward balance, we would of course continue to provide student employment opportunities. And kind of along with that, continue to increase programming and activities where we can while our self-support resources recover. So of course, OISP is not a fully state-funded department. We do have, our office does have a dedicated programming and activities fee for, well, I should say, a services and activities fee is what it's called. Provides funding for a couple of our key positions in our department, as well as provide extra funding for materials for programs or other programming opportunities. Of course, with of course, again, because of COVID and with the enrollment changes, our international student population, of course, decreased. And so we, for this fiscal year, we weren't able to have as much fee resources to put on programming, and we do anticipate that might take a little while to get back up to where it used to be. And so, of course, having access to this carry forward would help kind of bridge that gap. Our conservative projections maybe say maybe might take a full school year to maybe get back up. But of course, we are recruiting and have a lot of interest. And so just kind of bridging that gap between when our enrollment does come back up to where we want it to be able to provide more programming. So, and so again, this funding wouldn't be for anything, to kind of speak to the point you guys were talking about earlier, it's not for anything specific that would be outside of what our allocation request was for. It is, we would have it as resources available to, again, provide student employment opportunities for the various programs that we do. And then also, of course, have those resources available to ramp up programming if, of course, the international enrollment does increase over the course of this upcoming school year. So. I'm available, of course, for questions right now. And then I also can have any questions through emails, of course, if you guys think of any later. But, yes, Eunice, or do you want me to call on people or other people to call?
I can do it if you want. So let's go Eunice and then Bjorn.
So I was going to ask next week because I was talking with Lacey earlier, but I really want to ask about this because after I see the presentation.
Yeah.
So first of all, I don't want anyone thinks out that I am selfish about this question because as you probably know about me, that I am not selfish, but as a program in the international student, and my position is paid from S&A, and I am so thankful you all that you guys paying my salary. But my hours are cut this year because of they told me that there's no money. Mm-hmm. And it affects me as a student because I had to work another position as a senator. I am so happy. I'm not doing senator position for money. I am doing it for the students, but still some income for me. But when I was working for international office since last year I was working 20 hours every week. But this year they cut my hours by saying that we don't have money. Even though if I put for example, they didn't let me work what I am doing, sometimes it's more than 11 hours, maybe 12 hours for 2 hours, but they were telling me that, you cannot work 10 hours every week, more than 10 hours every week. They were telling me that, you have to keep it 10 hours because the budget is going down. So when I see that there's money left, I'm just curious about it. Why they told me that there's no money left, they cut my hours, and I just curious about it,
Yeah. Well, Eunice, for your position, so for our student positions, we have our office, we have our students who work in our office and also students who help with programming and activities tasks. And so for our S&A allocation and for payment for student hours, we do try and keep the S&A funding just to pay for positions and hours where they are helping out with programming, and keep it separate from just positions that would only be working in our office. Because of course, as part of our as part of our allocation request, of course, and in the spirit of the S&A fund, of course, we want to use the S&A funds for positions that are again doing those programming and activities that do benefit the international students, and then also all the students at Central who do pay into the S&A fee. So, and I don't know off the top of my head the details about your position, Eunice, so I'd probably have to get back to you on that. But
Please,
as far as
please do not use my name, okay? I don't want to have a problem.
Okay.
I have a question then. Do you know how
Okay.
many student position in the OISP is paid from S&A?
Off the top of my head, so it kind of fluctuates because we kind of keep a pool of, I guess, available hours that we can pay for. And then so depending on the amount of students that we have working, it does kind of change. But I think if I'm remembering correctly, for the last few months, I think it's been maybe 2 or 3. I could be wrong, and I probably will have to get back to you, or we'd have to get back to you for a specific number, but that's what I can remember right now. So.
I believe Bjorn was up next.
Yeah, can you like paint me a picture of what outreach, as detailed in the budgetary request, has looked like this year as opposed to past years?
Yeah, so we've attempted to do multiple virtual events. I think there's been a couple. There's been a couple movie nights, I think, and then I can't think of any specific examples off the top of my head, but I know there's been a couple movie nights and there's been a couple that they've planned and that didn't go through because the interest just wasn't there. And I know I think they do a couple of like chat events and things like that. And perhaps Eunice can probably speak more about it specifically, but I do believe they're still doing like the International Cafe on a more digital basis as well. But that's been our primary kind of method of I guess programming this year is just having everything having to be digital. So I guess much in this modality where it's like Zoom or Teams and having students interact that way. And then, of course, we also, not with S&A funds, but we also, our office also helps provide and promote like on-campus speakers or like events if it's international based as well. Like, for instance, our study abroad department is helping put on a discussion or help host, I guess, a discussion from an ambassador that's going to be available. So, yeah.
How has outreach looked in the past? And I'm assuming outreach in the past costs more than it does now, given that there's rollover.
Well, yeah. So at the very, very first year of the quadrennium, OISP, I should say for the past several years, OISP has kind of been going through a change and transition, and actually, of course, we're going through kind of a reorg now with the creation of the extended and global education. I guess it's division. That's not a college right now. I don't know if it's going to be, but the division here at Central, which OISP is now under or a part of. And so the very first year, there wasn't a dedicated program coordinator, and there also wasn't much, if any, spending out of the S&A funds that very first year of the quadrennium. And that second year, we of course hired our program coordinator to, amongst other things, increase student programming. And so from there, we came up with a kind of a detailed yearly, we came up with actually a list of various activities that we could do throughout the year and how much they would cost. And then the program coordinator, of course, would be responsible for choosing which ones to put on versus, the student hours they would need to put on those kinds of activities. And actually in the past, too, we also had some OISP funds to contribute to the programming activities too, which also kind of helped with that. And again, so from that, so that was, of course, FY18 and FY19. And then, of course, going into fiscal year 20, we were on track to spend down this allocation down to 0. But of course, COVID hit at the end of FY20. We had to of course cancel the large parts of our graduation celebration at the end of that fiscal year, which does take up resources, of course, from the S&A fund, a good chunk that we, of course, allocate for the year. And then, of course, just not being able to have really much to spend it on, except outside of the student hours for these digital events here in this current fiscal year.
Gotcha. Thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Are there any in the chat? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Patrick, for your presentation. And if we do have any more questions, we'll email you at a later time.
Okay, and if you do email, of course, you can include me, but also Nikki, who is the program manager, who of course couldn't be here because we got a brand new AUAP program, which they're teaching right now. So, but yeah, I'll answer any questions just as soon as we can. So,
thank you, Patrick.
All right.
And we'll vote on this next week.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yep.
All right. With that, I have the second call for public comment. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I see Aubrey's hand, and then we'll go to Eunice.
Hey guys, I just wanted to give everyone a heads up in case the rumors start going around, but I am moving positions here shortly at the university. So I'll still be at the university, but I am moving over to our foundation office. So next week will be my last meeting here with the S&A committee, unfortunately. I have really enjoyed working with you all. You guys are a great group, and I'm going to be sad to be leaving, but Peggy is here tonight to just kind of watch what's going on. She's going to be helping with minutes and everything moving forward. She's fantastic, and she will take good care of you guys, but just wanted to let you all know that next week will be my last meeting.
Oh, no. But what are you doing in the foundations? So I'll probably still be dealing with you then.
Yeah, I will be a fiscal analyst under
right.
Juliana.
I'll see you over there. We'll miss you. Hi, Peggy.
All right, we appreciate all the hard work you have put in.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Bjorn, did I see your hand up or no? No, okay. Any other, let's see. Oh yes, Eunice, you're up next.
Please, when public comments come, Eunice should be the first, okay? I give the public comments all the time. However, I would like to say that Dr. Great, I really like your profile photo. However, I am a committee member for the Spring Festival. So we are having Spring Festival on April 28, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Cirque 137. And it's gonna be the event to celebration cultures among the diaspora of Asian American, and Pacific Islander identities that I represent at Central Washington University. We are here to share, to learn, to support, and appreciate one another. So it's gonna be some games, sport games. It's gonna be performance. You guys all welcome to come. When you come, you have to wear the mask for sure and do the health check things in the CWU. But I won't be able to go because I am Virginia. But I will be so happy to see you guys there because we work very hard for this, and we want people show up because also due to right now discrimination on the Asian people, and I think it's gonna be some way to show our sports these identities. And please let your friends know. It's open to everyone. I don't know if it's open to community. Probably community cannot come Central Washington University right now. I don't know about it, but it's open to CWU community, which is you guys all welcome. And please, when you go to eat for me too, it's gonna be some snacks. So eat for me too. And Aubrey, thank you so much for everything you do for us. We love you. And thanks for, again, we're gonna miss you. I mean, if S&A can funding you to stay here, we can do it. I'm just joking. But Peggy, welcome. I don't know you, but someone said welcome back to you. It means maybe you did this before. And we love you too. I don't even know who you are, but thank you for coming. I wish you were here in the deliberation times. It was very hard times for us, but again, thanks for everyone in this group doing everything for students.
Any other comments? Bjorn, I see your hand up.
So how about that Alaska? Kidding for now. Kidding for now. I mentioned in the chat a while ago making a quote unquote time capsule to talk, well, basically communicate to the S&A committee 4 years from now, because they're going to have to go through a quadrennial deliberation. This was originally going to be building up to a joke in which you guys stuffed me in a box and I would just pop out in 4 years. But I was interested in like how we would go about putting that together and when.
Joey, it looks like you have your hand up.
That is actually on an upcoming agenda item, Bjorn, that we'll be discussing.
Eunice, I see your hand up.
I have a question for the best VP ever. I mean, of course, Dr. Hibbert is the best VP too, but I am talking about student VP, Brandon. I have a question for you. So there's a nominations for the says best committee in the school. I think it's student government things. So if the SNA is selected, we all gonna get a gift or something or no? Because I think we are the best in the school.
Yeah, I mean, if we get a nomination, we'll should all be invited to the awards night, and we'll find out there.
And can you nominate for us? Thank you.
Will do.
Any other comments? All right, so actually, Brandon, I have a question for you. Tonight was the final debate for student elections, is that right? And then elections open this weekend?
Yeah, so they'll be opening up Friday, actually. Friday going throughout the whole weekend into Tuesday, I believe. But I mean, we're only 30 minutes into this debate, so I don't know if y'all want to like hurry on over and hop over there. But yeah, Eunice 2024. Yeah, you get the big presidency. We'll take you to the federal level, Eunice. But yeah, I mean, it might be going right now, but yeah, this is the last debate, and then general elections open up Friday throughout the whole weekend. It'll be through presence. We'll also be tabling if you're in Ellensburg. Try to table aggressively, get people to vote. But yeah, that's what's going on right now.
All right, and will those debates be able to, like, will we be able to watch those later, like on the student government website or anywhere like that?
Yeah, thank you, Christian. It's like a professional here guiding me through this. But yeah, they'll be recorded. They're recorded right now, and they'll be posted on the ASCWU website, so the main CWU website. It'll be right there on the homepage for the Zoom recordings.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions, anything at all? Let's check the chat. Okay, seeing none, can I entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I moved.
Okay, moved by Eunice. Any second? I saw Jess's reaction first. And the motion passes.
Have a great evening and weekend.